talk to you about the relationship conservatives, not even Christians, but just conservatives have with evolution. So,
if I can just underline what you just said, not only is the concern among the Christian ranks and the general religious ranks, but even among biologists and even among evolutionary biologists, there is a growing doubt about the soundness of the Darwinian evolutionary model, and we'll get into that as we continue this discussion.
For the purpose of this discussion, let's focus more. I mean, we can obviously talk the religious significance, but let's focus more on the secular stance on evolution, where without the Bible, without any religious text or what the gospel says, how is it currently standing in society, both sociologically?
Let's start with Darwin's own argument for evolution.
All right.
All right, let's start with that. It rests on one starting premise. Here's an assumption. His first premise is that every member of every species is derived from some previous or prior member of a species, and that's premise number one. Mm-hmm. Now that's pretty easy to accept. That's everybody can understand that. You're the result of your mother and father making love. And so forth and so on, all the way back. You can trace your lineage in Armenia all the way back. Okay, so we know that. So that's that's what makes evolution so tempting, is the starting premise. The second premise, however, is a little bit more difficult. The second premise is that this change over several generations of species development,
over
thousands and millions of years, is the result of natural selection. He never said survival of the fittest. I want to point that out.
This is true.
He never said that evolution is survival of the fittest. What he did say is that certain characteristics for survival tend to succeed. Tend to be successful.
The strongest of the species is the ones most responsive to change.
Right. And so he therefore concludes from those two premises that all species and all members of species have evolved from a common ancestor. Mm-hmm. Now that's another premise that he doesn't examine. He simply accepts the premise that every species evolves from a common ancestor. The biggest problem, which now is becoming hotly debated in biology classes and in theology classes and philosophy classes, is he doesn't explain how that original species developed, nor does he account for his theory does not account for how any new species emerge.
See, the thing about his theory is that it perfectly explains how the different shapes of beak sizes for finches, or the different color of fish or birds, right. But when we talk about an organ, like the difference between a human brain and a monkey brain, we're not talking beak size here. We're talking radical, just the slightest difference. It's catastrophic differences. Let me give you an example. My grandfather, he was diagnosed with Parkinson's in something like 2005, and by 2014, he passed away. Now, for those who do not know what Parkinson's is, basically one chemical, dopamine, is out of balance in the person's brain. One chemical. So even with modern technology, all of the best medical help we could give him, he had 9 years once the disease started to take effect on his life. You're telling me that one chemical is out of balance, that is shut down. That's the end of that particular organism. Now we're talking. Forget about a whole body or a whole organism. Just one organ has one chemical that's not precisely right, and then you're going to tell me that all of these things worked in unison. See, the evolution from the difference between a monkey brain and a human brain is jumps. You cannot make small little changes. You make a small chemical change, it's death. It's death before you can procreate. With a bad gene, you're going to need several dozen changes before it actually starts being something better, being an improvement. But that's just one. I have many more criticisms, but it's not just me sounding off. There's a petition signed by, I believe, 1,000 different scientists of varying backgrounds, not necessarily creationists. Some are atheists, some have PhDs. They're not just biologists, some are geologists, all around, basically showing skepticism of evolution. Now, for all those atheists watching that are, that in their free time like to masturbate to Richard Dawkins, calm down, calm down. They are not simply saying that, oh, therefore the world was created in six 24-hour periods and the universe is 6,000 years old. That's not what they're saying. What they are saying, though, is that the evolutionary model that Darwin, the doctrine of Darwin and Dawkins so strongly clings onto does not paint the full picture of our universe. There's some other factors. And look, as I study the universe and I study evolution, the more impossible it is, and the more my belief in a creator or an intelligent designer is cemented. It's almost like it's reconfirming my biases the more I look into the complexity of life and the complexity of the universe. So
and the main it's called Darwin's puddle. And Darwin's puddle is a hypothesis trying to explain how the emergence of new species may happen. Darwin's theory of evolution by itself cannot explain the emergence of new species.
Abiogenesis is
right, because the study of layers of strata in soil indicate that there are no members of a certain species for 5, 10, 15 million years, and all of a sudden, within 400 or 500,000 years, 17 new species emerge. This is a big problem for the theory of evolution. So currently, folks, there is no way to contort, to bend like a pretzel, Darwinian evolution to explain the emergence of new species. And we know that new species emerge. We know that. That's just true. They do emerge, but we don't know how. Now, the leading theory is, of course, there are two leading theories. One is that somehow there's a missing part of Darwinian evolutionary theory that we don't yet know, we haven't discovered. Or the other one is they are spontaneously created, probably by a divine creator. So you've only got two choices. There really aren't a lot of choices.
Either way, you're putting your faith in something. And
exactly. My
natural skepticism makes it very difficult to believe in a theory that hasn't been proven yet. Something we basically have to wait for the atheist to have something, because right now it's just a belief that we might find some solution to the problem later on.
Yeah, if you read all of the articles about how species emerge, you'll always find the word "this may explain it," "this possibly explain." Always look for that little word "may."
Alleged. It's like the word allegedly. It shows up all the time.
Yeah, just look for that. And when you find that word, you know you're dealing with a hypothesis. Now, there's nothing wrong with a hypothesis, but the problem is we shouldn't treat it as a divine revealed truth, so like some religious doctrine or other.
One more thing.
Yeah.
I haven't read the Voyage of the Beagle or The Origin of the Species. However, I have read The Descent of Man, written by Charles Darwin. Yeah. The other books, he kind of tiptoed around the issue of evolution. He was very, very scared, very skeptical about it, for social reasons. By the way, in case you didn't know, he was considering being a priest. Interesting. Just like Stalin. Stalin was thinking about being a priest.
And by the way, he believed in a creator. He believed in a creator God. Okay.
Yeah. So he, in his Descent of Man, he very much does his best to talk about this scientific issue and also talk about the philosophical implications. Now, I won't get too much into it, but it is very interesting to see his thought process. He does use the word creator, I believe, 7 times in The Origin of the Species. Fun fact.
Yes.
One more thing. I think that this is my last point. I think that the use of evolution and its popularity grew so fast because they could use this as a stick to beat up Christians and Christian thought and beat it out of academia. Well, now that Christianity has been excommunicated from academia, there are no more Christians to beat up in academia. They're kind of looking around, and now they're actually critically assessing what are the core fundamental assumptions of evolution. Mm-hmm. And they're realizing that they weren't replacing the Christian presuppositions with their own presuppositions. They were just shooing them away. So now they're kind of looking around like, well, we need something now. And, we're kind of looking at an implosion, a potential implosion on the scientific community if they are not able to find some sort of support beams for the theory of evolution.
Right, and you're absolutely correct about that. One last point on my end is that if you are a student in a biology class in a Marxist government college or university, just ask your biology Marxist Darwinian professor, is it settled science? Is it unquestionable now that we know how new species evolve, come to be? And you'll see that professor piss their pants, because the answer to that is no, we don't know. It's not settled science. Okay, so if they're using this as a baseball bat to beat God over the head, they better try another weapon.